Memory is a selection of images, some elusive, others printed indelibly on the brain.
Introduction. Tradition is protection. Toward a theology of sacred memory. Patch 1. My grandmother's quilt. Memory is a selection of images, some elusive, others printed indelibly on the brain. My name is Eve. I was named for her. The words of Yves Baptiste from the film Yves Bayou. Long before I encountered the writings of Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, Ari HaKadosh, long before I studied the Mishnah, long before I learned the language of Sefirot, Partsufim, Simsum, or Shevirat HaKelim, I encountered theology in cloth. The one customarily kept folded at the foot of a bed, or sometimes left hanging on walls, in windows, or on ceilings, as an ever-expanding banner of legacy, or as a map north, an encoded instruction, warning, or ritual evocation. A patchwork quilt. Nothing extraordinary to the untrained eye. What may seem to some at best a collection of scraps. Pieces of dresses, fragments of work clothes, bits of fabric preserved from births, weddings, funerals, migrations, celebrations, losses. A patch from a daughter's Sunday dress, a strip from a grandfather's overalls, a ribbon from a baby's hair, a piece of cloth lovingly preserved, surviving long after its original garment had disappeared. What appeared to be fabric was in reality memory. The sewing together of patches becomes a ritually sanctified encoding of ancestral transmission. What appeared to be an object crafted for mere warmth, comfort, or decoration was in reality protection and an initiation into the inheritance of the transcendent state of divine simultaneity that the people called Black are uniquely configured to embody, as this work will begin to reveal. The quilt was not merely a covering blanket, rather a vessel, a garment functioning all at once as a family tree, map, a type of photo album even, and a living, continuously expanding archive. A body, a family sewn together across time. Years later, while studying the language of Kabbalah, I realized that what my ancestors had preserved through cloth, the Chachamim, the sages, preserved through Mishnah, both were attempts to prevent sacred memory from disappearing. This book begins with the proposition that these two worlds are not as faint from one another as they may first appear. The crisis of forgetting. We live in an age obsessed with information, yet increasingly disconnected from memory. Information is accumulated to fill databases and can be stored by corporate machines who merely use data to attempt to track, mimic, and inevitably destroy real humanity. Memory. Not mere chemical or hormonally influenced cognitive mechanisms of data recall. Real memory, on the other hand, transmits sacred legacy, sustains cosmic order, grounds authentic identity in a living divine simultaneity, and enhances the divine aspects of humanity. The collapse of civilizations does not come from an erosion of wealth or lack of cohesiveness between the needs of the people versus the greed of corrupt rulers. Civilizations collapse because they lose continuity. The ravishing and pillaging of lands, the usurpation of thrones, the slaughtering of innocents, the theft of natural resources, the economic collapses, ideological and martial wars. These incidentals are all the residual byproducts of the actual catastrophe, which is the death of memory that led to not the fall of an empire, but the fall from divine light image to a dense materiality that necessitates a futile and fruitless search for wholeness that is impossible without the ancestral tradition. A people survives catastrophe when memory survives catastrophe. This distinction is especially significant for communities shaped by exile, displacement, enslavement, migration, colonization, forced conversion, cultural suppression, and historical fragmentation. The descendants of Africa scattered through exiles and enslavement throughout the diaspora, and the descendants of the authentic indigenous Americans who were reclassified as Negro, Creole, colored, mulatto, black, and African American, know this fragmented reality intimately. The land herself knows fragmentation. African people scattered through exile, African consciousness scattered by European ideologies antithetical to maintaining the purity of the soul. Just as the African continent was mutilated, decimated, and divided by Europe, lands belonging to particular tribes bisected by newly made borders the colonizers enforced without respecting the integrity of tribal continuity. The tribal familial territories once peacefully coexisting across the lands of Katiopa, Africa, and Turtle Island, America, were invaded, raped, and drained of preciousness. For African and American people of blackness, not people defined as black, there's a difference, as you will soon read in this volume. We are sharing the same story. This is the shared collective wound of identity theft and systematic paper genocides, soul fragmentation, individually and collectively, resulting as entire languages disappeared, family names erased, genealogies were broken, ancestral territories lost, sacred calendars were disrupted, sacred feasts were demonized, oral traditions invalidated by the hegemonic insistence upon validating only the writings canonized by the very ones that stole our secrets and fed us lies, lies that ensured our souls would remain trapped in a dimension of oppressive duality and division. Yet somehow, memory survived, even when the very act of reading and or writing was punishable by death and worse torments. Privilege of access to ancestral memory was often through songs, encoded hand-clap chants and double Dutch raps, recipes, the cryptic sayings of the old folk, the stories mama told while greasing your scalp, the proverbs granddaddy told from his favorite chair on the porch, the way grandmama would be in the kitchen, simultaneously instructing you how to cook with no measurements, while giving you that good common sense that in fact ain't so common at all, as well as the wit and wisdom of the uncles, spilling philosophical gems dressed up as jokes and joning at the spades table. The way we danced, juked, ate, drank, washed our hands, covered our hair, through familial habits we were told that's just what we do, whose original explanations had long since been forgotten, but which, you will see in this work, had already been codified in the Mishnah, the Halachot and Minchagim, evidence of what was already embedded in our culture. Through ritual, through silence, Through ritualized silence, the continuity remained, even when the language describing that continuity had vanished. This phenomenon raises a theological question. What exactly is tradition? Tradition. Tradition. Is it merely inherited custom, nostalgia, culture? The iconic opening of Fiddler on the Roof?
And how do we keep our balance? That I can tell you in one word. Tradition! Tradition! Tradition!
Or does tradition perform a deeper spiritual function? The central argument of this work is that tradition functions as a sacred vessel through which collective memory preserves humanity's participation in the divine image. Tradition is not simply inherited culture. Tradition is protection.
Like others before me, I have the gift of sight, but the truth changes color depending on the light, and tomorrow can be clearer than yesterday. Memory is a selection of images, some elusive, others printed indelibly on the brain. Each image is like a thread, each thread woven together to make a tapestry of intricate texture. And the tapestry tells a story. And the story is our past.